Hey there, 6th graders. So you guys have two different pieces of paper. First thing you're going to do on both those pieces of paper is put your name on it. And then you can put the big one aside, flip the small one over, and your job is going to be to create a two-colored pattern. And if you remember back to what we talked about in class, pattern is anything that repeats itself. So we've got a pretty straightforward pattern here using the same shape but just two different colors. Now think back to how we described this as a complex pattern. A little bit more complex because it quite requires a little bit more thought in making it. So once you have that done all the way corner to corner, top to bottom, left to right on that piece of paper, what you can do if you're interested in shooting for that 4 is begin to add some value. And that just means you're going to take a pencil, you're going to press hard, and as you work your way across one of those shapes, you can start to lighten up just a little bit. So since I started doing that in the bottom left-hand corner on each shape, I'm going to keep doing that all the way through. Alright, so this is what it ends up looking like for those of us who are shooting for the 4. Now, on that other piece of paper, here's what you're going to do. Flip it over, and you're going to end up tracing around this piece of paper. So your job is going to be to line it up as close as you can get it in the middle, somewhere right about there. Use a regular pencil and lightly draw around the outside edge. Once you've got that drawn, take it off, and you should have something that looks nice and light, just like that. For the next part, you're going to need a ruler, because around that piece that you just traced, you're going to lay a ruler down, and you're going to draw a line across each side, just like this. So you should have something that looks just like this. Now your goal in one class period is to try your hardest to get these two things done just like that. Now what you're going to do on this piece of paper is you're going to use lines, and you're going to start to create some movement with those lines, which is how we're going to fill this space out here. Now let me show you how I'm thinking of doing this. I'm going to start this pattern just like this. Now I'm starting mine with a regular pencil. Your job, if you don't want to use a regular pencil, is going to be to use one single colored pencil. Don't use markers for this part because a marker tip might be a little too fat to fill in close, tiny, tight spaces. Now the way this ends up creating movement is it looks like everything is moving or radiating out of this top left corner. So we've used line to create some movement. I'm going to leave these two squares open for now, and I'm going to move down to this piece right here. And I'm going to do something a little bit different here, and I'm going to start from the corner, and I'm going to make a wavy line all the way out. But here's the catch. Anytime I've got a bend in my line, like this or like this, I'm going to move that line out, back up, and then out. Out, back up, and then out. Out, back up, out. And I'm going to fill in these spaces up here, even though they're off the paper. So this piece creates movement because it looks like everything is moving across our paper this way. Continue doing that in these two spaces here. Leave all 4 corners blank for now. Alright, mi amigos, here's what it looks like when it's done. Remember, you were supposed to use one colored pencil, but I started the clip with a normal pencil, but I did want to show you what a colored pencil can look like as you work through it. So remember, yours has one color on it in these pieces of pattern out to the side. You should have 4 different patterns out here, each one showing movement. This one looks like the movement is going up, and this one, the movement looks like it's all radiating outward from here. This one has movement pulling us around, and this guy right here has movement that looks kind of like it's all being pulled out of this little crevice looking guy inside. Now what you're going to do in these spaces on the outside is you're going to create a bubbled style letter of our year, which is 2015. So just like you did with your name tag, once you write out the number, you're going to trace around it, and then go back and erase the inside piece. If you wanted to use a block style, you may do that as well. Zeros are pretty easy. All you got to do is put a little circle inside, and ones also extremely easy. Fives, a little bit more difficult, but this one, you can just retrace the outside as well. So now your job is going to be to take as many colors as you'd like and fill in this box, this box, this box, and this box. Don't add any extra colors to these though, please and thank you. After that's all colored in, your job using the glue is going to be to glue this guy in here. Think back to the days of kindergarten where we learned dot, dot, not a lot. That's going to be pretty important for this piece, because if we use too much glue, it's going to wrinkle our paper. So what I did on this is I used 6 dots. I wouldn't use any more than 8 dots around the outside edge, and very carefully set it down inside that piece you traced around. So what you should end up with at the end of class today is something that looks like this when you're done. Double check to make sure that you've got a name on the back somewhere. Since we do have a little wet glue, some of us might end up with some glue that's squished out around the edge. That is totally not a big deal. Just make sure that it goes on one of the shelves that I've showed you in class so it can dry without sticking to anybody else's work. There's what the final piece should look like. Obviously I traced back over the pieces I showed you with original pencil, or regular pencil, sorry, with a colored pencil. So this is what your finished cover should look like. After that, you are going to actually take that and you're going to glue it onto your piece of felt. Now this stuff is pretty bendy and soft. So what we're going to end up doing is actually gluing it kind of up here. So we've got a border around the outside edge that's roughly about 1/2 inch. It doesn't have to be precise, but that's roughly what we want outside there. Before we trim any extra off the edge, once again, we're going to use our dot, dot, not a lot. Think it back to when we were kids. We're going to use some dots of glue, and we're going to glue it onto that felt. Remember, don't use too much glue because it'll wrinkle your paper. Just a fun fact, the reason that Elmer's glue will wrinkle a paper when it's used in large volumes is because there is a little bit of water inside there, and that extra moisture will wrinkle your paper, just like if you had a piece of paper and you soaked in the sink and then let it dry out, it'd still be nice and wrinkly. Press that guy flat onto the felt. That might take a few seconds and quite a bit of pressing, but that's okay. So once you've got it on there just like that, you're going to have to use some scissors and carefully cut the edge. As we begin to cut, you may find it easier to actually go down with a ruler and make a mark, a guideline, that'll help you cut along that felt. A pencil will work good because it'll show up just lightly enough to give you a nice area to cut along. Our scissors will cut through felt, but it is going to take you a little bit of effort. Cut your felt, and your project cover is done.